We appreciate you all being here. Again, you know, the House has acted a couple times. They've sent a couple bills over. Senate hadn't acted. The President hadn't acted. And with the time frame that we've got going forward, it appears that, at least for a short period, we're going to have to work through this. So what I'd like to do is just ask about a couple things. Again, a lot of veterans' families have contacted us. They're concerned. So for the record, can you tell us that veterans' benefits will not be affected, Mr. Werfel?
Senator, for those that are funded through the Department of Veterans Affairs, they are explicitly exempt under the law. But there are certain veteran services that are funded out of other accounts and in other agencies that would not be exempt and would be affected.
So VA hospitals, things like that?
That would all be exempt under sequester.
Okay,
yes.
Very good. In your Mr. Carter, in your testimony, you mentioned that DOD is investigating ways to reduce the problem of a $3 billion shortfall in TRICARE. Can you give us perhaps some ways that you hope to avoid, a problem being there? How are you going to make up for the $3 billion? What are the investigations?
We are looking at that. We'd like to avoid that $2 or $3 billion shortfall causing us to have to stop giving care in the last month or so of the year. I'm going to get back to you in writing because it's very complicated. And to be quite honest, we haven't found a way to do it legally yet. But we're working on it.
Well,
and whatever we do, we want to be legal. So if I may, I'd like to get back to you on that. But we are working on it because we understand the gravity of the problem.
I appreciate that. I think everyone on the committee, that's something we'd be very, very concerned about. So, Mr. Werfel, in the past, when budget years were tight, the FAA has proposed reductions in contract towers and flight service stations, other services to small cities and rural areas. Would you implement these type of reductions? Are these the type of reductions that we're going to see as a result of sequestration that would perhaps disproportionately affect rural America versus urban America?
Well, I think there's definitely risks with respect to FAA, and I'm glad you raised the question. FAA is going to face a cut of roughly $600 million under sequester. A vast majority of their 47,000 employees will be furloughed for one day per pay period for the rest of the year. And as importantly, this is going to reduce air traffic levels across the country, causing delays and disruptions for all travelers. And to your question, it's my understanding that, yes, there will be a curtailment of service at low-activity airports, which typically reside in rural locations, so they will be impacted and feel the effect of the sequester.
Okay, very good. Mr. Carter, you mentioned that the Air Force plans to cut facilities maintenance projects by about half, including cuts to 189 projects at 55 installations in 26 states. Do you have a list of the...
Absolutely. I can provide you with that level of detail. The numbers are correct, and I can give you exactly what it's basically everywhere.
Okay, very good. One of the things I'm concerned about, the Air Force, if we do go into sequestration, I've heard that they may have to reduce their flying hours by as much as 18%, and very quickly. Can you tell us how that is going to affect the airworthiness of our pilots? And because the reality is that this actually could mean a 30% reduction moving forward, when you're backing up.
No question, flying hours, as I mentioned earlier, steeply decline. What that means is two things. First is the units are, except for Afghanistan, which we're protecting anybody who's going from Afghanistan, they're training.
So if you prioritize that, I don't mean
we are prioritizing
that, then that's going to make the other, that's where the 30%
exactly. Bigger cuts in the others, which means they're not going to be ready for other contingencies. Right. That's a real national security concern. And if you play this out, when pilots' proficiency declines to a certain extent, it takes a while to get them back. And so you're going to see that in our carrier air wings. You'll see it throughout the Air Force. And this is why I said short-term disruption is long-term harm. And that's why we really need some long-term solution here and not something that just moves things down the road.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.